Welcome back, everybody. This episode is a part two, kind of almost of the last one. We went over all of the defensive ones last episode. That was a fun one. Today, this episode here, we're just going to do the major award voting. So this is where you get the big time superstars. We're going to start it off here with the NL Reliever of the Year. I think everybody knows who's probably the favorite here. This guy seems to have a whole collection of NL or just AL and NL reliever of the year awards at this point in his career. Sorry, he played in Milwaukee before, so I guess just the NL. But Josh Hader, they might name the award after this guy someday. What do you think about the competitors he has this year? Do you think anyone has a shot to take down the King?
Yeah, like we touched on before, I think when we get into these, a lot of my natural intuition is to find reasons to vote against the guy that led in war. And honestly, I could find a lot with Hader in this. He pitched a ton of innings and struck out a ton of dudes, so the war is the FIP numbers aren't all that much more impressive than a lot of the other candidates. He lost 10 games for the Giants this year. So you could find a way to make a lot of cases against him. A case I could almost make against him is if he was even the best reliever on his team. I mean, Andrew Heaney was absolute nails for them in San Francisco, 161 ERA for him, and really impressive numbers. Um, the sad one in this is Connor Jones for St. Louis, who got hurt early in the season because his advanced numbers were so insane when he went down. I think if he plays a full season, he wins this. Kind of running away, in my opinion. But I haven't even got to. I think my first place vote for this is, and it's actually your guy in Yon Ibar. Just so insanely effective in his role. 34 shutdowns to only 7 meltdowns. Hader was 39 and 13. The ERAs in the low twos. From just a profile and how he pitched, just with less innings on him, it's one I prefer to Hader, and I think it's going to go Ibar than Hader for me.
Yeah, I'd have to say that probably out of all these stats on this page, the one most significant one for me in the top five guys is the home runs allowed for my guy Abar there, one compared to
Mm-hmm.
18 for Hader. And that's insane because I have the worst ballpark in all of baseball for home runs. It's actually worse than Coors. Coors gives up a lot more gap power than mine. That average doubles and triples are a lot higher, but my park is 30% higher in right-handed power and 23 for left-handed power. So the overall home runs are up 27 or 28%, which is insane. So to only let up one home run in 107 innings in my ballpark is nuts. So yeah, and the WPA was pretty high. So I didn't. Yeah, I know Hader had a pretty remarkable 237 strikeouts, but yeah, I agree. I think Poppin and Heaney and Abar are there right with them. Really good points you made for Heaney. I just looked a little closer at him when you were talking about him there. I just didn't notice before how outrageously low his walk percentage was. 3.9% is just sparkling. Dude had what an incredible season there. And the other one, like you said, Connor Jones, 0 home runs allowed by Connor Jones, as you mentioned there, and which is still a decent amount of innings there. 41, like you said, missed about half the season, but pretty incredible. Some of these stats, some of these guys have put up. Andrew Heaney, FIP though at 2.2 is just incredible. So yeah, I think all those guys are just such amazing seasons. And we didn't really get to Hauser there, who had another 2.5 WAR season in Colorado. Really, really solid there. Only walking 7% of guys. Had a ton of shutdowns at 32. So
Devin Williams in Cincinnati too. Another really nice season. Low 3 ERA and 36 saves, which I believe led the National League this year. So,
right.
yeah, a lot of guys.
And then we can't not mention Barriera here in Arizona with the ridiculous 210 strikeouts in 100 innings, maybe the highest ratio I've ever seen. Struck out 50% of batters. So that's just awesome. And I think the recent years I've really started to go by the WPA stat. Like, I know for the hitters, it's kind of
Yeah.
like a clutch rating. And so if you sort by WPA, it's just you get a bunch of guys about three there, and the three of them that we mentioned with awesome seasons: Abart, Williams, and Jones, and Hader's a little bit farther down that list at number 5, and Sean Poppin at number 6. So really interesting. breaking down those advanced stats real tightly there. And I love searching by K percentage there. And that's one that's just crazy to me is you get Hader and Barrier at 48 and 50%, no one else above 38%. It's just awesome. When you see those guys, how many of those batters they strike out. I'd love to watch any of these top relievers. That's one of my favorite things in baseball. Is watching those just like fireballers come out of the pen. As a kid, like watching Mariano Rivera, and one of my favorites always was K Rod there. As a kid, and
Yep.
just loved it. And the Jays used to have a guy named Billy Koch that threw like 101 before anyone else was like throwing over 95. So it's just a cool position. So I love. I know we kind of rambled for a bit there, but a lot of good candidates there. We'll switch over to the AL ballot now for reliever of the year. The AL side of things also has some really nice candidates, led at the top by a couple big numbers that jump off the page at me. Yet 41 shutdowns out of the Detroit there, and the closer, and big Drew Rasmussen in there, and he had a huge year with the WP at 2.5. Uh, a lot less innings by some of these guys. You don't have quite as many stopper roles in the AL. You only have a couple guys over about 90 innings here, but still some really solid seasons if you want to go over some of the advanced stats here and what kind of jumped out for you.
Yeah, I think there's another side with a lot of cases to be made. Blake Taylor leads in WAR, so I think he gets a number of votes in this category. And he was definitely solid this year, but the 14 meltdowns for him takes me off of him a good bit. Another guy that's probably taken off this, which is crazy, is Kevin Ginkel for me, who has over 10 more saves than anyone else and 9 wins on top of that. He accounted for basically 55 wins in closing out games. So, but his advanced numbers aren't great, so he's probably thrown up for me. It seems a little bit like a two-horse race between who you mentioned, Drew Rasmussen, who I put together that all-time records. He set the AL record for shutdowns this year, and Ian Hamilton for the White Sox. Both very similar, kind of across the board in terms of ERA. Rasmussen's a little more of a high strikeout, lower control guy. Hamilton just kind of limits it all. But both those guys very worthy. I think I lean Rasmussen just a little more exciting. That 100 strikeout number looks nice up there at the top. So that'll be a fun two-horse race between those two for me.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. One thing that's really crazy is as good as Drew Rasmussen's season is, the BABIP was actually very high for Detroit there. I know it's a big stadium and you can fit a lot more balls in the outfield there, but a 328, like you'd think his season could have even been better. If you look at it, almost all the other guys at the top here, BABIPs are like a 260, and Blake Taylor actually had a really high one too. So maybe that's a little interesting stat. But one that just really is tough to overlook for me is in first place there with the WPA of 4.1 for Ian Hamilton is so high for a reliever. So such an
Yeah.
impact reliever in the clutchness he was in this year. So yeah, I think I'd have to go with Ian Hamilton with that vote. But I do agree. There's a lot of tough guys at the top, and I know the innings were a lot limited this year. Boston wanted to keep them fresher, but Karinchak was also an absolute beast this year. He obviously, like always, led the league in strikeout percentage at like 40% batter struck out with only 8% walk. So just has crazy ratios every year and all that type of stuff. 50 strikeouts and only a 1.44 ERA. But it's tough to vote a guy that only had 31 innings. I thought I'd just shout at him out because he's pretty much been like the greatest reliever in the history of the AL for TLG almost every single season. He's right at the top of those leaderboards. And then there's one more thing I was going to mention. I know it's small sample sizes, and in real life, I'm pretty sure they vote before the playoffs, so the playoff performances don't affect it. But I'd hate to see KC's guy up here. I don't think I'd be able to vote him after the blew the ninth inning there in their playoff game and
Yep.
the game five. That was just the rookie going out there and just letting up 2 runs in the ninth inning just really hurt. So I'd have to remove him from my ballot because of that. Poor guy. All right, so next
Uh,
up we have rookie of the year. Let's start in the NL. This award is going to be really interesting. I know I actually have a couple guys here in the running. There's not much for position players in the NL, but on the pitching side of things, you have some really nice candidates. What do you? Who do you have at the top of your leaderboard for the rookie?
yeah. First off, props. That was a smooth transition into the Royals rookie reliever into rookie of the year. So well done on that one. Yeah, this is again for me. I am not even looking at the batters tab for this for all five of my votes. I think I found five pitchers that they're more deserving than any of the position players. Um, again, for me, this is kind of making the case against the top guy, which is Jose Vasquez for the Cardinals, who was remarkable this season, 12-9 with a 328. Really impressive rookie year for him. I am giving my vote, and we didn't even touch on him in reliever, and we touched on his teammate Brandon Barriera, but I'm giving it to Joseph Utrera for Arizona. Just digging into the numbers more, the guy went 11-0. He had a 189 ERA. Um, just insanely impressive across the board. 2.3 WAR generated in just 76 innings. So was definitely better in his limited time. But that record and that ERA was a little too clean for me to completely ignore. So I'm Utrera 1, Vasquez 2 at the top.
Yeah, I love some of these stats. The two things are just so crazy about him. I know the innings are a lot higher for the guys above him, but only letting up 2 home runs, like you said, that clean stat sheet with the 80 strikeouts, 16 walks, is just some crazy ratios. The dude was money this year. I think I give a lot of the credit to Austin Hedges. Maybe some would say too much, but I really think he is a big reason for those two rookies playing so well, Barriera and Utrera. And like you said, Vasquez had a monster year, almost 4 WAR, and I'm pretty sure Vasquez started playoff games there in St. Louis, which
Mm-hmm.
for a rookie is just big time. And I think the other rookie in St. Louis also, who we probably don't want to miss here, is
Dio.
Cedillo. Yeah, what a huge profile he has. 95 to 17 strikeouts to walks. That's an incredible ratio for a rookie, walking only 5% of guys. So having those two rookies in St. Louis is going to be a bright future with him and Vasquez. The walk percentage is both under 5, which is nuts. So those two guys are going to make a nasty combo. Yeah, what a nice pitching class we have here, and we didn't even touch on some of these other guys too much, Kepner and Cintron, but also really solid season. Both those guys are on playoff teams too in Washington and Colorado, so a
Mm-hmm.
lot of impact pitchers here, and I'd have to agree. I think those Arizona guys are tough to pass up in the ballot with how much their stats jump out with 210 strikeouts out of a rookie. That might be an all-time record. I'd have to say I haven't looked any stats up, but just off the top of my head, I can't imagine too many rookie pitchers ever getting more than that. Uh, Obviously as a reliever, especially, but Barriera's 210 strikeouts as a reliever, a lefty reliever, it's just nuts. And that's with missing like a third of the season almost, which is crazy, or at least a
Wow.
quarter of the season with Arizona there. He missed quite a big chunk of time at the end of the year. So yeah, what a monster class there. That's a lot of fun, and yeah, like you said, I don't think the batters have to be talked about much. I got Korean sensation there, Jung Ho Lee came over and hit 312, but didn't have a lot of juice behind his bat. With a 1.7 WAR, is pretty solid, a little role player for me. And Bradfield did have a solid season in center field after that trade for Washington. In only 61 games, he had 1.6 WAR, pretty solid contributor there in the playoff team. But yeah, I have to say I go with you there with all 5 of my votes probably going towards pitchers. On the AL side of things, we have a little bit of a different story. We have some big time numbers out of some of the hitters here, and then also have some pretty solid pitching with one guy really standing out. Well, let's start with the hitters there. What do you think about those top 3 there, all having pretty solid seasons in Jordan, Crum, and Volpe?
Yeah, no, I think Volpe's by far kind of the best bet here. I we're not getting to the pitchers yet, so I don't think he has a chance in the award. But a crazy impressive year for him. From in the small sample size, um, unreal. 990 OPS for him there in 62 games. Just hit the crap out of the ball once he came up. So. Him over a full season would have given this one a good run for its money. So like him a lot, and then you get there's kind of that defensive specialist group with Cologne and Jones there too, putting up 2 WAR seasons. But I think Volpe is in his own class on the position players, but also not in the class of the award, sadly.
Yeah, really nice group. And you mentioned those defense specialists. Enrique Bradfield's actually on this list under the AL too at 1.2 WAR, and I think in the NL he had 1.4. So he must have had close to 3 WAR there. So it's too bad he wouldn't be a little higher on this list. I wish it would kind of show the totals and not just what they had per league. Because I think that's why Trout missed out in MVP last year. I think he had like 9 WAR combined between the AL and the NL after that Los Angeles trade, but he didn't qualify for the voting too high there. But really solid season out of your boy there too, Justin Cologne. Shout out to him with a huge defensive season. 2.1 WAR in just 81 games, with slugging about 400 as a defensive specialist there at third base. Really solid, a lot better in the NL bats, that's for sure. Pitching wise, we'll move on to there's some future stars at this position. some guys that produced really well as rookies, and even guys really far down this list that look like they're going to be future number one and twos. Really, really, really deep group of pitchers here in the AL. Really headlined by one though that looks like a future superstar in Oscar Soto with one of the best rookie pitching seasons of all time.
Yeah, I mean, like I wrote in that thing today, in terms of WAR, he's had the best pitching season in AL history this year. It's wild out of a rookie. You touched on there's 206 Ks there, so almost to the Barry era number on the other side, but so insanely good. 270 ERA. Um, there's a lot of names on this list that, like you said, though, that are really fun. Francisco Crispin's a guy I like a ton. That 14-2 record for Connor Prelip for the Jays with a low 3 ERA is really
Wow.
pretty. I know you swore off Cesare for what he did to the Royals, but he had a really nice year. I'm swearing off because he refused to start him in Game 5. Nick Zwack for the Royals, who had a really good year between the bullpen and the rotation there too. ERA in the high twos.
I had
So
no idea
a
he was a
lot of
rookie. 28 years old. I just never assumed he was a rookie. I never looked at his minor league history. That's funny.
Yep, late developer there, but yeah, a lot of guys there on that list that had really good seasons. That's not even counting John Pittman in Oakland, who I think is going to be really good too. Didn't get a lot of defensive help there, so the ERA is a little inflated, but he's really good. But it's a runaway. It should probably be unanimous here for Soto.
Yeah, I just I can't wait to see some of those guys. When you said that, I had no idea how good Prelip was. When you said he's 14-2 there, that's incredible for a Jays team that was pretty solid, but
Needed him.
not. Yeah,
Yeah.
really needed a big young arm to step up. And I didn't think they'd be as good as they were this year with over 90 wins from that ball club. Was super impressive. A couple big veterans coming in through free agency, and some of those young guys stepping up. So that's a really cool season out of them. Pittman's profile is just beastly, like you said. I think
Hmm.
his defense will probably step up a little more in the future. They have some good defensive outfielders there and big outfield, so I'd expect him to put up some monster seasons there. Him and Soto are going to be such good aces for their team in the next few years, I think. But it's just so crazy to think how nasty those top three guys' ratings are, or the top four actually pre-lip too. And I love that 100 to 20 K to walk ratio from Nick Swack there. That's wild. Love it.
Pretty.
All right, next up, what a talented group that was. That was a lot of fun. So next up, we have the big awards here. We got Cy Young coming up for the NL. This one has a couple really good candidates. We got about 20 guys in the NL that are probably talented enough to win a Cy Young year to year. It's one of the deepest groups I've ever seen in a conference. Even guys at the bottom of this list, like you got Mackenzie Gore and Derek Diamond, a couple absolute studs. Just crazy, crazy, crazy talent all across the board here. So this is one of the toughest awards to win, and I'm pretty sure we have had a different winner almost every single season in the NL Cy Young. Who do you got this year?
Oh, I'll try to keep this short, but this was my favorite award to vote for this year. I saw so many cases for so many different guys on this list, and this was one where the clarity I got was I was trying to put myself in kind of just this in a real world scenario and what I would have thought looked the nicest. Um, but cases for Mike Soroka, who leads the league in WAR in Atlanta. Kai Tang has the best FIP among all the starters for the Giants. Pearson strikes out 200 and 70 something guys this year.
Sheesh.
Morahone in Cincinnati almost up there in the Ks, but a little impressive and more impressive on the number front. Patino leads the league in ERA, but the guy I don't know why, but I keep coming back to because I think he was so important for the team and it felt very R.A. Dickey-ish to me, just in terms of just such a late bloomer, was Michael Baird for Washington. Um, a really tough park to pitch in, a team that overcame a lot to get into the postseason. Obviously, had to knock off your guys in the division, but he goes 18-6 with a 288 in Washington. The FIP and all that is kind of right in the middle of the pack. It's not anything too impressive, but just at face value and what I took him as, I think he's my pick for the side now.
Yeah, it was a great breakdown. Loved all those things you talked about. That's the crazy thing is you mentioned all those names, and we still like look at all the talent right below that, like
Jackson
Julia.
Rutledge, I didn't even
Yeah,
mention, who was remarkable this year. Yeah.
yeah, huge year in San Francisco for a team that made it right to the finals. Him and Tang were just a killer duo there. And you got Kyle Wright, who won the award a couple years ago. He's way down here. Has actually, I think, on your list there, the highest WAR season of any NL pitcher in TLG history. That 8.2
Mhm.
year he had a couple years ago. So just so many big time names on here. Blake Snell almost won it, I think, last year or 2 years ago. So, but yeah, I agree. I think the one number I really love to look at here is the WPA. I'll come back to. Same as your pick there, Michael Bard there at 3.0. That's just so much higher than everyone else at the top of that list there. They're all at 1.2, 0.9, even got a negative one out of Shane Bieber. So it's just so clutch there in Washington, 18-6. There's just a lot of things to like about that season he had, and I really, really do like that pick he had there. I think everything about his game was just killer. Only 4% walk rate, struck out a bunch of batters. Right at the top there in WHIP. His beat BAPIP was pretty good. Guys only hit 240 off him, so consistent. Like at game to game there, and had 32 starts, and just I love that season too. I really think this is it's a really tough award to vote for. I think you could just throw a dart and just hit any of these guys, and you probably have a pretty good pick. It's just an amazing group. I think any of those top seven guys right there, the home runs from Louis Patino is just outrageous to me. That's the number I just noticed here that just sticks out to me so much. Everyone else is well into the double digits. You have almost all the entire top six are in the 20s and 30s, with only the top guys there at 14, 15. And then you have Louis Patino at 7. That movement he has is just outrageous. So that was such a low ERA. It's just like, oh, it's hard to overlook that too. So just so many different guys. That was such awesome stats that season. I can't even make up my mind. I love your pick there. I'll have to just think about that a little more before I make mine. I definitely don't think you can go wrong with any of those. Let's jump over to the AL side of things. AL Cy Young is also has some pretty big names at the top here. A lot younger guys in the AL. The NL has all the superstar aces in their late 20s. You got a couple old guys here in Chris Sale and Cal Quantrill. Lance McCullers here, but a lot of this list, you got some young stud pitchers, especially in Chicago there with the top two guys on the WAR rankings, followed by a 26-year-old in Baltimore. What do you think about the AL race?
Yeah, I tried to make a case against Soto, and I don't think I can. It's just too good of a year, across the board for me to really look anywhere elsewhere. I think the best secondary case is his teammate JP Massey, who's a 20 game winner this year, and um, they feature both really similar numbers, honestly, but just the lower average, and the lower BABIP that Soto got, led to probably those 3/10 lower in ERA. So I think that's the difference there. I think my five rounds out with JT Ginn for me, who had to miss a little time, but he was just as impressive as anyone in his short time. And then Rocker and Sale for me as well are in that top five. So I still think this is probably a runaway for Soto, and pretty cool to do the Rookie of the Year Cy Young double if he's able to get it done.
Yeah, did Louis Patino get that in 2021 for San Diego, or was that the year before? Maybe I think it was the double. He also had that would have been 6 years ago in TLG history. Pretty impressive. I
Yep.
think you have exactly what you said. A lot of those numbers are really similar to me across this board. You get the home runs. All the top seven guys there are between 12 and 17. Strikeout percentages are pretty close. Almost everyone in the mid 20s there. The walks are everyone in the single digits. So, like you mentioned, a lot of categories. It's just exactly what you said. Soto just seems a bit better in each one of them. Like the average is a little bit lower than everybody's. The WPA is a bit better than everybody's. The WAR is a bit higher than everybody's. So it really seems like he's like 10% better in just every category. Surprising to see his home run so low compared to Massey, who has 15 higher movement. I'd imagine in the future. I actually think it's funny to look at this. I actually think a lot of the old time voters there in the old days before it was such advanced stats, I think Massey might be a runaway in this award. That people just love those 20 game winners. I remember as a child following baseball, it's
Yep.
like all any of the commentators talked about. It's like, oh, 20 wins is wins and ERA. So I think being a vet, I think in the those old time voters would probably roll with Massey just because everyone seems to love those 21, especially when he's so much more ahead of everybody else. Like Hans Kraus did have 18, and Bradford, Texas was 17 there. A couple of your boys, I think. People would love Massey's season though, 215 strikeouts and 20 wins. But yeah, those advanced stats, just love the rookie there, Oscar Soto, and I agree. I think he's that's one of the best seasons. Getting those two major awards most likely is just going to be monstrous. We will move on to the MVP, the big one here. Everyone's discussion one every year. It comes down to a couple big names in the AL. The pitcher side of things, we just talked about those guys. Or sorry, I started with the NL. My bad. I said the AL. The NL, a couple big names at the top. You have Juan Soto with just a monster season. Hudson Potts with a 50 home run season out of second base, which I don't know if that's ever happened before. I can't remember the most second base home runs I can remember. I don't know if Jeff Kent ever had close to that, or what's that? Chase Utley. Those guys are probably in the high 30s, maybe low 40s. I don't know if anyone's ever reached 50. Robert Puas and Mike Trout and Luke Leto. These are just some crazy names at the top here. But yeah, the one also that should probably be up there, I'll talk about in a second here, is Shohei Ohtani. It's just showing his hitter war here, but his pitcher war was added together with his hitter war actually puts him at second place on this list in WAR, right below Soto. So my top two in a kind of a tier, it would probably be between Soto and Ohtani. And I know that seems biased, like a division rival at almost two higher WAR than Ohtani, but at 9.6, Soto was just insane. But he did hit 150. I will point out, Josh. Shame to Soto hit 150 in the playoffs there in 2 rounds and got the team knocked out. So I know, like I said earlier, in real life they do the award voting before the playoffs. I know they do in the NBA. So you don't really want to put too much stock in the small sample playoffs, but it's hard to look over that. I will. That gives a little bit of an argument to Otani there with that monster of a season he had. But what are your thoughts on the NL MVP?
No, I just love the spin zone that Phillies are getting credit for not making the playoffs. It's helping them out. I like how that's been turned around there. That's pretty well done. It's a pretty clear top four to me. Otani, Soto, Potts, and I think it's going to get overlooked because the offensive numbers aren't as crazy as the group above, but the St. Louis team was the second youngest team in all baseball. They led that division for a lot of the year, and the major reason is Puason. So I think he deserves to be in that top four very easily. Um, I, I don't know why I'm seeing it this way, but I keep coming back to Hudson Potts. 50 home runs in San Francisco out of a middle infielder. It blows my mind and the impact he had on their team. Just a bat that's needed in that park. The Soto advanced numbers are. I mean that OPS is out of the gym. Um, but I like Potts and just what he meant to the San Francisco team this year. Another team that went from they went from worst to first in that division, and he's pretty much the main reason why with Leto. So yeah, I think I like Potts in it with Soto and Otani just behind. And Puasen's one of my favorites, but he's probably fourth for me.
Yeah, what a fun award. This is another one, just kind of like the NL Cy Young, where it's just you have so many talented dudes. Like that's crazy that like a season like Ronald Acuna just had, and JT Real Muto as a catcher hitting 307 with 30 bombs and a 5.5 WAR on a first place team, and we didn't even really get a chance to bring him up. Not that they weren't deserving; it's just those top five guys are all so good. But just shows how deep this race is, because I think those guys in a lot of seasons would probably be the winner there at 7.2 WAR. Acuna, I think he did win at 7.2 WAR a year or two ago. I don't. I mean, he might have had closer to 8, like 7.7 or 7.8. But and I think Tatis won it with about 8 WAR. I think he actually might have had 9 2 years ago when he won it for me. But yeah, you just have some real stars here in the NL at the top. And it's the same as we said for that NL Cy Young. I don't think you go wrong with anyone really. Even I think I'd probably extend it to say maybe more of a top 5 for me. I think Trout probably deserves to be in that talk just because Arizona just played so well this season, and Trout was at 427 on base percentage. and also giving you a pretty good center field. And probably, like you mentioned with someone else earlier, just like a little bit of a longevity award. I thought he deserved it and got kind of screwed out of it a year or two ago there when he got traded from the AL. But I think you're right though about Potts. I mean, 50 home runs for second baseman. As good as Soto was, it's just he's such an average defensive player. Where I know Potts was kind of negative zone range too, actually more negative than Soto. But being able to give you a solid defense at second with that kind of offense just seems to put him so much better than the average second baseman compared to a lot of heavy hitting left fielders. I really do like your argument towards Potts there. I really that's a tricky one for me, and I don't want to seem too biased voting for my own guy Otani, even though he had one of the most magnificent seasons in baseball history. Guy hit guy had like a 166 OPS plus, and he was the best pitcher on my team by a mile. And I'll mention one more time. I think he had like 14 starts in a row with letting up 2 runs or less in 5 innings, like 12 or 13 in a row. It was just unbelievable in the second half of the season. So he's like one of the better pitchers in baseball and like one of the best hitters. So it's just pretty crazy what he did too. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know where to go with that one. I think Soto's
Yep.
9.6. Just that's tough to look past.
Yep, that 30-30 year for Puason might get Drew's vote in this one.
Right. Yeah, I didn't even notice that either. I love that too. Those 2020 30-30 guys. Just a huge season. Tatis just cracking the 2020 category. No one else really up there is high up there in those two. So yeah, some really impressive seasons overall there when it comes to the NL MVP. And we will move on to the AL MVP now, which is crazy because if you look at the WAR totals, I think the 8th place in the NL is higher than first place in the AL, which is crazy. That's crazy. The AL, what do you think about the top here? You got one of your boys right near the top of my list.
Yeah, the sad thing is it feels like it's Devers' award, but this is, my case against him, I think, is there's so much help in Boston. Everywhere in that lineup. It's Bogan, it's Robles, it's Lux, it's Varsho. It's so much talent that there's a ton of help around him. So there's a couple guys, and Bannister being one, kind of in the same vein as Puason in the NL, where just meant so much to our team being good that I think he should get a lot of credit for that. The other guy in that same vein is Kierstad for the Royals. Basically, just would be not a good offensive team at all with Reese being hurt if he hadn't had a massive year. And then you get my fourth favorite is Isaac Pacheco for the White Sox. 40 home runs from a shortstop, awful impressive there. A 23-year-old shortstop, not to mention. So, I think Devers ends up winning. Those offensive numbers are so good and so clean compared to everyone else. But Bannister and Kierstad in particular, I think have really good cases as well.
Yeah, and Cody Bellinger jumping up there, the home run league too at 44 bombs, definitely putting up his case. Also, I know Houston did make the playoffs, which might be kind of a tiebreaker when it comes to things, as he's got pretty similar stats to some of those other guys. I like your argument there for Bannister. I think to add on to that, you see the record difference for you this season, and he was a huge injury last season. I know you did start kind of slow. I think it was last year before his injury, but he went down last year, and that was one of the only main differences from your team. Like Costa was
Yep.
healthy, Gonzalez healthy, almost all the same pitchers. You can like just see the difference in your team. You went from what like 70 wins to like 105. And
Yeah.
he was like the major injury for that. So a really good point there that you had is just like the value to your team. It's just insane the difference there when he played a full healthy season, 161 games, and gave you like 6.3 WAR. And still, probably the crazy thing about him is he's still getting better. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he even topples those stats next year. Right behind a 30-30 season, just 2 home runs short. I'd expect him to be a 30-30 contender almost every season for the next half a decade. Just an awesome season out of him. So I think that vote's really close for me between all those top guys. I think that's going to be a really tough one to decide on. Just like a million of these awards, it's not a clear favorite for me. I really do like seeing Adley Rushman up there too. I know he's not as high in the WAR ratings as some of those other guys, but the catcher being up there with 131 OPS plus, I mean, he deserves a lot of recognition too. I'd say, especially in Baltimore, another guy is just so valuable to his team, just coming so close there to just like how bad they've been for so long, being able to be kind of like the main reason behind that resurgence there. Him and Rocker were just awesome there, and I think Soto could probably deserve a little bit of credit here too.
Yep. Yep.
Soto with the monster season as a rookie, putting Chicago into the playoffs there. I think he could actually finish in the top five. War wise, he would be about third or fourth. So I think he definitely deserves some votes on the pitcher side of things, especially with how much better he was than everybody else on the pitching side of things when it comes to advanced stats. So really interesting group there for sure, and it's just a nice talented group. You got three center fielders at the top four WAR ranking, so really deep group there, and a bunch of shortstops up there. I loved that episode. That was a lot of fun for me. I know we went on a little bit long, but anyone else that's a big awards guy that watched until the end here, I hope you enjoyed too. Tyler, thanks a lot for coming on. That was a blast.
Enjoyed it, man. Always fun.
All right, we'll catch you guys next episode. Thanks for watching.